Ultimate Custom Night has more threats than any other Five Nights at Freddy's game, and a lot of them share mechanics, which makes sense since everything needed to fit into one humongous game that was made in Click Team for some reason. But what if we changed that and made it so that every single one of the characters in Ultimate Custom Night had their own completely unique mechanic? Well, in this video, that's exactly what we will be doing. And trust me when I say that this game is probably going to be the single hardest FNAF experience ever conceived. So, without further ado, let's get into the video. Now obviously, we have a large cast of characters to get through, so let's go through the roster starting with Freddy Fazbear. In Ultimate Custom Night, Freddy is a simple left door animatronic where he approaches the door and will either kill you when you flip up the camera, or he will leave after the door has been shut for 1 second. Now this mechanic, it's fine by itself, but I think that there's a way we could make it a lot more interesting and not as simple to cheese. So here's the idea. Freddy will approach both the doors as in the base game, and also the right door. However, once he gets to either of your doors, he will wait for a certain amount of time depending on his AI level before he jams the door like Bonnie or Chica do in the base game of Five Nights at Freddy's. Heat will cause Freddy to move faster like in base UCN, but it will be a slight speed buff compared to that game, and unlike the original game, it will actually affect his difficulty since if you don't keep track of Freddy, he will jam your door and make you a sitting duck. Also, making him come to both doors will make him a bit more difficult and allow him to have more of a presence. Now, next up we have Bonnie, who in Ultimate Custom Night is basically just 3 points. That being, if you look at him while he's peeking out of Pirate Cove, he will disable the camera for a certain amount of time, although you can still interact with the camera since it's just a visual change. However, I want to make Bonnie an actual threat, so here's the idea. Bonnie will have 3 phases. Phase 1, if you look at him, he will disable the camera like he does in the base game. Phase 2, he will lock you out of the cameras for 15 seconds, and Phase 3, he will just straight up kill you, which will make Bonnie an actual threat and not just 3 points. Chica is one of the more difficult characters on paper, but she's also the entire reason for the GMB cycle existing, since you need to have the music box playing over 15-second intervals in order to keep her from progressing to her kill phase. If you decide that you don't want to do this, you need to make sure that you change the music box whenever Chica's pots and pans stop playing. However, I want to change this mechanic completely to a whole new idea, since Chica has never been interested in the music box. She's been interested in food. Free food! So here's the new idea. Chica will still have the pots and pans sound, but instead of waiting until you don't hear the sound, you need to wait until you hear the pots and pans. When you hear it, you have 20 seconds to go to the kitchen camera and hit the make a pizza button in order to feed her. If you fail to do this, you will die. Pretty self-explanatory, Chica's fat ass deserves to be fed. Anyways, next up we have Foxy, who in Ultimate Custom Night is the biggest pain, besides maybe 2 other characters who we will get to soon. In Ultimate Custom Night, the way that Foxy works is that if you don't look at him, he will slowly put himself in the office piece by piece until he's fully assembled, and then he will kill you. However, I think that we could definitely make him a bit more interesting. So here's the idea. Foxy will have the same leaving Pirate Cove mechanic, however instead of straight up killing you, he would instead run down either of the 2 halls and jump scare you if the door is open. Otherwise, he'll hit the door and take the same amount of power each hit as his FNAF 1 version. The reason I prefer this is both that it will fit his character a bit more, and well, since Foxy wants to put himself in the office piece by piece, let's just make him break himself on the door instead. Next up, we have Toy Freddy, who is fat. No, in all seriousness, he is probably the most infuriating character in Ultimate Custom Night. However, I actually really like his mechanic. I just think it's a little bit unfair. So let's change the mechanic just a bit to make it more fair. So here's the idea. Toy Freddy will require you to help him play Mr. Hugs, but if you fail to do this, and he gets jump scared, he will smash his computer screen and the minigame will get harder. After you fail to catch Mr. Hugs 3 times, Toy Freddy is guaranteed to kill you on the next cam flip. Toy Bonnie and Toy Chica are basically carbon copies of each other in the base game, approaching from either the left or right side of the room, but requiring you to put on the mask. So I'm just going to make the mechanics super simple. Toy Chica will require you to put on the mask, while Toy Bonnie will require you to take off the mask, or else you will die. This will be when they hit the middle of the room, you know, basic UCN stuff. Mangle is one of the many vent animatronics and one of the more difficult in base UCN. Well, if it wasn't so goddamn easy to just shut the vent after every cam flip, so I'm gonna make it a bit more tricky. Mangle will never actually kill the player, however you will need to block them with the vent snare, since if they make it to your opening, you will be unable to close the vent door, and you will be forced to leave it open and let any other character in, This means that by themselves, Mangle can't kill you, but the second more than one vent animatronic gets added, you are basically cooked. Now, our next two characters are the Balloon Children, and to be completely honest, I think their mechanics are completely fine. However, I want to make it that instead of it being a temporary effect, they will permanently take away their respective tool, which will make the game a lot harder. Now that the first row is done, we move on to the second row, starting with Withered Chica, who again is just another vent character in the base game, similar to Mangle in that she will get stuck in a vent in a similar way to how Mangle stays in your office. However, let's give Withered Chica and Withered Bonnie the same yet different mechanic. They will act like Withered Bonnie in the game, where if you put the mask on for Chica, you die, but for Bonnie, you need to put on the mask. The puppets mechanic in Ultimate Custom Art is pretty good and fits really well. However, I want to make it that you cannot use the global music box to fill out the puppet's box, and instead, you must go to their camera and fill it up that way. Also, the puppet cannot be stored like in the game with vent resets, and can kill you whenever they actually want to. For Golden Freddy's mechanic, I think we could make him just a little bit more interesting. Golden Freddy will be in the office, and if he looks up at you, you need to enter the camera and the mask will not be used at all. This is taken from Five Nights at Freddy's Rewritten, which I gotta say, absolutely love that game. Now next up, we have Springtrap. And for why he's here, I don't fucking know. Anyways, in this game, he's just another vent character, and he's super goddamn simple at that. So I think that it would be cool to completely change his mechanic. So Springtrap will appear at either of the two doors, and you need to use the audio lure button to scare Springtrap away. If he's been at that door for too long, well, you die, since you can't keep him out of the door. The second thing that Springtrap can decide to do is enter the vent, which you'll be able to hear, and you need to use the appropriate vent snare to close him off, or else he will get through and kill you. This would make Springtrap an actual threat rather than just another vent character, which fits his villainy a lot more, and makes him not so pathetic. Anyways, if you are enjoying the video so far, be sure to subscribe. I'm thanking all my subscribers at 100,000, so be sure to subscribe. Anyways, back to the video. Now, next up we have the three Phantoms, Phantom Freddy, Phantom Mangle, and Phantom Balloon Boy, who honestly have pretty chill mechanics. And honestly, I can't really think of anything too crazy, except that Phantom Mangle should also knock out the audio lure for Springtrap for 15 seconds. But otherwise, I'll be honest, they are all fine. Moving on to Nightmare Freddy. His mechanic in-game is a pretty good idea, however it's a bit basic and I have a way to make him way more threatening. So here's the idea. Throughout the night, Nightmare Freddy will spawn a bunch of Freddles around the map, including on the cameras and in the office. And you will know when this happens when you hear the Freddle sound start to play. And you need to look throughout the cameras, which you can now flash as well, and scare off any Freddles you find. If more than 5 spawn, Freddy will have a chance to kill you after 20 seconds of 5 spawning. This will definitely make the game way harder, and finally get Nightmare Freddy to actually be able to do something. Nightmare Bonnie is the first of the plush animatronics, which is a mechanic I just do not like one singular bit. And honestly, these three were the reason that I wanted to make this video in the first place. So I'll be talking about all three characters right now. So let's come up with mechanics for Nightmare Bonnie, Nightmare Mangle, and Circus Baby. Nightmare Bonnie will have the same door breathing mechanic as in the fourth game, where if you lean to one side of the room and he's there, you will hear a breathing sound, and you need to shut the door to scare him off or else you will die. Nightmare Mangle will come from a side vent, and you will know when they are approaching by hearing Nightmare Mangle's static noise. Once it gets loud enough like below his music, then you will die. Circus Baby will show up at random times in the office, and you need to put in a specific code when she shows up, and this code will be on the desk, and only be like 2 or 3 numbers. If you fail to do this within 30 seconds, then you die. Nightmare Fredbear and Nightmare are our next two characters to discuss, and in the game, they both have a very simple mechanic of just showing up at the doors when they laugh. However, I have some cool ideas that we could use instead. Nightmare Fredbear and Nightmare will both laugh like they did before, except they will be at either of the 2 doors. When you hear them laugh, you have 5 or 10 seconds to check the door and perform the needed action. If it's Nightmare Fredbear at the door, you need to shut the door. If it's Nightmare, you need to flash him with the flashlight. Jacko Chica is the main reason for the temperature mechanic in base UCN, and I can still see that mechanic working here. However, I do want to change a few things about her mechanic. For starters, if the building hits 120 degrees, it's over and you die anyway. You also won't have to shut the doors, because that's just stupid, I don't get that mechanic at all. Nightmare Beyond's mechanic is completely fine, and so is Nightmare BB's, so I won't bother with them since they already have some pretty cool mechanic. Although Nightmare BB will have a timer to kill you anyway after he stands up, since, you know, I don't know, things. Old Man Consequences has a chill mechanic too, so I'll leave that one the same as well. Ballora's mechanic is pretty good too. However, I want to make it that the way that Ballora approaches the door to be the same as it is in the sister location Custom Night, rather than in the base game of UCN. This will make Ballora a bit harder to deal with since you will have to worry about her more often. Now, the most difficult character in UCN has to be Funtime Foxy, and on 50-20 mode, man just eats the death coin.
I'ma eat it.
Their mechanic in UCN is completely fine, and I will keep it the same, except I will add an AI difference in that the higher their AI is, the more often that you will need to look at them. I will also make it that unlike the original game, you are unable to death coin Funtime Foxy. If you use it on them, they will just straight up kill you. This is just so that we can make the game as hard as possible, so no death coining Funtime Foxy. And it is another vent character, and unlike the others, I think that him being in the vent makes a lot more sense. And to be honest, I like his mechanic in the game, and I think it's fine. Except I want to make it that if you hear and it is squeaking, you need to shut the door instantly and it will kill you after 3 seconds. Trash in the gang are honestly fine, but I do want to make it however that if your mouse hovers over number 1 crate in the office, he will just jump scare you regardless, and there are a few spots where he can spawn. Helpy will be the exact same, except that there will be more than one spot that Helpy can spawn in, so you need to look around for him in the office. The mediocre melodies are all very similar, but they have fine mechanics, but I will quickly come up with some ideas for each of them to make them work. Happy Frog will be the same, heater doesn't work but Audio Lure does, Pig Patch will have the heater work but only 3 times before you need to watch the openings, Mr. Hippo is the weakest, being affected by both the heater and the audio lure. Nedbear isn't affected by anything, and you need to watch the duck openings and change the openings when you need to, and Orville will stay the same. Rockstar Thready is another character that I won't change all that much, just will make it that the heater no longer affects him. Rockstar Bunny is the same, except that his guitar can be on any camera. Rockstar Chica will be the same, except that you cannot cam stall her, and Rockstar Foxy will be the same, except that if you hover over the bird, it will activate him rather than if you just click on it. Music Man is the main reason that you don't want the sound to be raised. However, I want to make it that instead of you being able to calm him down by being quiet, the sound will be permanently raised to a certain level every time that it does. So you need to make sure that you don't anger him too quickly, since his progress will never go down. Although we will have it that you don't need to worry about sound as much, since his progress will be a lot higher and it won't, go up as fast as it does in the base game. L-Chip and Funtime Chica will be the exact same, except L-Chip you have to click on the skip button rather than pressing enter. The next character whose mechanic we will change a bit is Molten Freddy, who is one of the vent characters, and to be honest, I hate how UCN made him have the exact same mechanic as Enid, so I want to change his mechanic just a little bit. So here's the idea. Molten Freddy will progress through the vent and unlike the others, will not make a sound cue, meaning that you need to track him to time out when he actually gets to the vent, otherwise you will die. So we basically didn't change anything, but hey, there's not much we can do here. Scrap Baby and Scrap Trap's mechanics are cool and will stay the same, except that we'll make it that they constantly attack throughout the night rather than just once a night like they do in the base game. Phone Guy's mechanic will stay the same, and for our last character, Lefty, we will change him quite a bit, since his mechanic in the base game is just a bit weird. So here's the final idea. Lefty will stand up in his room from time to time, and when he does, you have 30 seconds to turn the music box on for 5 seconds in order to calm him down. And with that, we have covered every single character in base UCN. Well, except for the 6 secret characters, but they're fine. Anyways, thanks for watching, subscribe, I'll see you in the next video.